Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey folks, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to speak with Mike Franz. He is the founder and CEO of iNSUPPLi. It is a mobile technology play here, really originally designed to kind of be like the kayak of industrial supply, meaning that an end user could go out and search out a part and see where they could buy it and what price they could buy it at, and really search out local distribution. And again, originally this was supposed to be a benefit to the end users, and so they wouldn't have to go search multiple sites and whatnot. And it was an aggregation play. But what he came to realize is actually this was a better play for local distribution. And it was really around the difficulty that local distributors have in driving traffic to their e-commerce site. When somebody goes on and does a search for a particular item in that industrial space, often, you see a lot of big names, like your Graingers, Amazon, some big industrial names who have very sophisticated e-commerce platforms, but they've thrown a boatload of money at being number one on that search. And so how do you level the playing field for the smaller guys in the local market? So really what he realized is that's where his niche was, is to help the smaller to mid-sized distributor really get eyeballs on their e-commerce site so that they could start winning that business and not secede that e-commerce world to the giants of the world out there. So terrific conversation with Mike, and I really hope you enjoy it. This episode is brought to you by my friends at Moblico. Since 2010, Moblico's mission has been to help wholesale distributors, manufacturers, and contractors improve customer service, expedite orders, engage, and expand their customer base. They've helped hundreds of companies who have fallen behind executing their mobile digital plans bridge the technology gap. Beyond two-way communication messaging, Moblico offers one-to-many targeted broadcast solutions. Imagine communicating new product offerings, special events, or even service disruptions instantly to the right customer segment. If you've been curious about how mobile technology can help your company or are looking to upgrade your current solution, check out what Moblico has to offer at www.moblicosolutions.com. That's MOBLICO solutions.com. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, hi, Mike. Welcome to Distribution Talk. Thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Jason, I'm very excited. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So if you wouldn't mind, let's share with the audience a little bit where your background is, and then we'll get a little bit into what you're doing today. But take me back to the beginning, how you got involved with this whole industrial world, or wherever you want to take it.
Well, I think it's kind of in my blood, to be completely honest, going back several generations. As far as traveling salesmen go back in the history of the family history. But my dad was a Donaldson guy and sold air filtration through distribution for 36 years. So I kind of grew up in that environment and seeing what it took and seeing all the different aspects of it. And I never thought that was going to be something that I would fall into, as I'm sure many kids growing up with the parent that does something and then you actually fall into that same sort of career path. But
it just happens, man. It just happens.
It happens. Well, it's funny because I actually went to college to become a golf pro. And if you can imagine that, not like a playing golf pro.
Is that a major? Is that a real major? It
was.
Pro?
It was.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair question. But I actually found that at the time this goes back, I won't say how many years, and nobody can see me, so it's okay. But it was many years ago. There was only a few programs in the country that allowed you to get a marketing degree, but then also you became a PGA Class A Pro through the PGM program, which was an actual program that you go to and you've got to study and do all this kind of stuff to actually become a PGA Pro. So that was my intentions. And lo and behold, I end up in industrial supply and industrial distribution. So there you have it.
A lot of I mean, a lot of my friends who intended to be golf pros, they wound up in sales of some sort. So decided nights and weekends were not going to pay the bills.
Oh man, and it is a lot of. I mean, not that any other job isn't a lot of work, but you're right. Nights and weekends, and the you're there from sun up to sundown just about every day, and it can be challenging.
I'm sure it can be. Yeah. Kind of takes the fun out of it too. I mean, I would suspect. So
that was kind of one of the things. I mean, I kind of burned out on golf because it was all the time every day. And that was part of it. But, and plus my game took a tank. I tanked. It wasn't quite as fun as it once was. And yada, yada. Here we are.
Right. And now we're slinging tools. Yeah, there it is.
Swinging tools instead of swinging clubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, as far as other career type things after school, so kind of fell into one of the first jobs out of college was ironically selling air filtration components and replacement parts in and around the Chicagoland area. So I was kind of hooked after that, to be honest, and seeing, just going into different facilities and seeing the behind the scenes things of big giant buildings in downtown Chicago and seeing what it took to take care of those buildings and those facilities kind of got me hooked on that. And then that led to other jobs in industrial supplies where I'd go into manufacturing facilities and see what it takes to run those places and see what the efforts, the products, and all the decisions that are made around industrial supplies and distribution, how that plays into the actual business of it. And Jason, one of the main things that I love about the industry is not only the people, which are fantastic, straight shooters and, just kind of like salt of the earth type of folks that I just kind of love being around. But that's a great portion of it, but also going into different manufacturing facilities and being able to see what they build and make. And that's always been a real passion of mine. I just love it. It never gets old.
Yeah. I mean, if you have either a mechanical aptitude or a mechanical interest, if people ask you, what magazine subscriptions you bought, if Popular Mechanics, was one of those, yeah, you definitely will be interested when you go into some of these places. I mean, now trust me, I've been in a few factory tours. I just kind of said, okay, can you get me out of here quick? And typically it was after an ugly night before, but, but it's, yeah, trust me. It was, it is fascinating. You look at some of the folks, and I remember up in that Chicago and Midwest area, I remember I was can't remember the town, but coming around underneath the lake as you're coming around through Indiana and whatnot. I was at a facility, and I remember meeting a gentleman who was probably his mid-70s. And I watched him. He'd been working there for 40 years at this manufacturing facility. And just, he was still extremely happy to be there every day. The guy was strong as an ox. I mean, he's throwing, rod through, through benders and things like that. But again, I think you're right. The people, it was just fascinating, meeting the people who've made their careers here. And so, going into these different facilities, there's definitely an education there.
Not only has it been cool to see and understand how, I'm not an engineer. I never ran a machine. I think I know enough to be dangerous to talk to people enough about it to sound like I know what I'm talking about to a certain extent. But I admire the heck out of those people. I mean, they're real artists. And also, as far as, being able to manufacture things and put things together and the ideas that go along with that, it's really impressive. But to your point, people that enjoy going to do something that you're trying to make and you have the satisfaction of being able to make that. And then, over the course of the years, I mean, you've seen this too, but the improvement in not only technology, but the advancements in the technology, but also the actual facilities. I mean, the facilities have gone from being dark and dingy to now lit by natural light, which
Yeah,
is an
yeah,
amazing thing to see in some
sure.
factory settings now. But that simple adjustment, it changes, people's attitudes and gets them more excited about coming into work every day. So, and the cleanliness and the safety and all the things that have been huge improvements to those facilities. It's just,
Hmm.
it's cool to see.
Absolutely. So you got in there and you started getting in that sales side of the industrial world.
Yeah. So getting into the sales side it just kind of felt right. And as far as learning how to do it and be able to understand what the market is actually like and understanding how, if we're talking about, and we obviously are, how distribution works and how distribution fits into that ecosystem or whatever you want to call it, that the process flow of how parts and supply chain works. I've repeated this story 1,000 times, but I kind of look at myself. It's hard to believe. I know you can see me, but the audience can't see me. But I'm a 5'10" short guy with a can't jump or run, but I play basketball, if you can believe that. And there's a common term in that where it's called the triple threat position, where you can either pass, you can dribble, or shoot. And that's kind of how I describe my experience in my career, is that I worked for distribution. I sold through distribution. I was a buyer at one point, just through circumstance, at an OEM. We made crankshafts and connecting rods for the power sport industry. And then from there, I went to Kimberly-Clark, where we sold through distribution. So I've seen kind of the different sides of industrial distribution and industrial supplies, MRO supplies, and that kind of set the tone for what we're doing now.
Got it. I mean, no, and the analogy makes sense. I mean, frankly, because my children are immersed in basketball right now. I mean, and
Nice,
I have
nice.
not had free weekends for many months. And, it's just
Sure.
the way to literally going this weekend to a tournament. And, you just kind of laugh and you're like, okay, this is my life now. So, no, it makes a lot of sense. And really, kind of that well rounded experience is really kind of what makes you very well suited to do what you're doing today. Because, I mean, by seeing all those sides, you've started to see the challenges, and really challenges beget opportunities. And so, if you wouldn't mind, let's kind of dive into a little bit about the challenges that you were seeing when you kind of left that safety supply, the Kimberly-Clark world, and said, you know what, I think I see an opportunity.
It just started to become very apparent that there was an opportunity to democratize certain things. And what I mean by democratize things, okay, let me get into the specifics of that. So I'm not leaving the audience completely like, what the heck is he talking about?
Baffled and confused.
Yeah, there we go. That one's good for a podcast, right?
Yeah.
So what we saw was, I would go out with industrial distributors as I was selling through industrial distribution, and there was a way to go to market and there was a way to sell, and those ways were kind of the ways that it had always been done. And we saw an opportunity to maybe put that a little, kind of level the playing field a little bit for the end users. So Joe's Machine Shop, there's 10 different Joe's Machine Shops, and they all buy the same type of products. Now that, as we were creating this idea, there was ways to collect data from the end users and use that data to show where there might be cost savings opportunity, organize that data, get that data that is, I mean, there's a ton of it. All the different, small, mid-sized manufacturing companies that we go to, they all have 1,000 MRO part numbers, and it's always, they got 10 different part numbers for each. They fat finger some of them. They've got capital letters for this, and they've got lowercase letters for that, and they've got 10 entries for the same exact part number. So for us to be able to go in and consolidate some of that information, organize it, and make that data a little bit more usable, provide some analytics around that, that was something that we thought was it was becoming more easy to do because of the advancements in cloud technology and cloud databases.
Mm-hmm.
For a bootstrapped idea guy that wasn't a tech guy, understanding that the data and the storage of the data had certain costs to it. And before the cloud database came kind of around, it started to become popular. That was for the big companies. It wasn't for little guys. And now, since we have that capability, it's a lot easier and cheaper and more cost effective to collect that data, be able to analyze it and produce ROI results out of that. So I hope that kind of answered the question as far as how we got started. And then we saw an opportunity to do that. But then really over the course of COVID, we got requests from several customers and potential customers to help out with supply chain and very basic requirements and needs from the end users. What we found there was we had all this data collected for MRO and industrial supplies. Well, how can we put that to use? And they asked us to put together a very simple, easy to use product that basically shows them price and location for local distribution. And what we built was a simple mobile app that shows exactly that. So we collect information from distributors and we show end users exactly where within 100 miles of their actual location, which distributors have inventory of the particular items and what their online price is. Then we direct them to those distributors. So we're really, if you think about it, we're kind of like Kayak for industrial supplies. So we point them in the direction.
Yeah. It's like an aggregator of some sort.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is the difference between this and an industrial supply marketplace that you've seen built out there?
Simply described, we don't sell anything. So a marketplace, you go on there, you have a bunch of different product listings, and you can make your purchase directly from that marketplace. Where we really want to help support local distribution and point people in the direction of those experts. So there's a lot of times, yes, there are commodity type items where you can go on and make that purchase. But if you need specialty tooling, if you need the advice of a true expert, we want to get you in front of those distributors that have that expertise. Like I said before, I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't claim to be any sort of expert when it comes to that. So we want to get you in front of the local distributors. And the whole goal is really to put eyeballs on those distributors because they don't really have the resources, the time, the expertise to really develop their online presence. And, there's a common term, SEO, search engine optimization, which does take a lot of time, energy, and effort and money to rank high enough on a Google results page to get noticed. And we want to change that.
Gotcha. All right. So that makes a little more sense. From when you were first trying to describe this, it really sounded more like a play for the end user, whether it be some sort of manufacturer, whether it's a small manufacturer, very specialty niche manufacturer, or a large facility. And again, we always think about large facilities as industrial supply targets. That's always where the mentality goes, big whale hunters. But there's so many little places to sell these products. And I think, again, when I was listening, I'm thinking, okay, well, you built a tool for the little guys in there. But then how is that not a bad thing for the distributor? If you're showing prices and you're letting compare prices and things like that, how does that benefit distribution? And I think you've started to answer it, but I want to really nail down why it's good for distribution.
Well, we think there's multiple advantages to really putting a spotlight on your e-commerce site. And the biggest advantage we see is that buyers have changed and buyers are getting younger. They go to a search engine to start the buying process. If they can't find something, they're on there immediately. And the advantage to distributors for the product that we made is that we want to put a spotlight on their e-commerce sites. And different from a Google search, we think that there's real opportunities to allow them really to, instead of having to deal with all this SEO and never showing up in search results, be on our platform. And then we help promote them to what is most like their biggest customer segment or opportunity, which is locally. So many of the small distributors, they do some sort of SEO, but they never rank on pages and they're never seen. And if somebody does a Google search, they don't get seen. So we want to help promote the local distributors to the local folks.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you really think about when people are doing a search, whether they're using Google or yeah, Google, that's it. Let's just face it. Where they really are starting first. Yeah, it's always going to be directing to the large online sellers and the people who have kind of the masters of the SEO universe and the people who have paid to be there. And unfortunately, yes, people, smaller distribution, localized distribution, who has actually, done a yeoman's job, putting together their e-commerce site, that's actually functional. Probably it's not as cool and as hip and slick as some of the others out there, but
Sure.
but it's functional. They're just never going to, they're really never going to get that time of day from that person who's starting the search through the engines.
Well, and Jason, it's really challenging unless you have a team to develop your online content, to develop your SEO strategy, to spend the right dollars in the right places in keywords to promote a particular product. And that's the biggest challenge is that, there's a lot that goes into SEO, and I'm leaving out some of the things that go into that. But for a distributor to really, they've got 50,000 part numbers that they carry. How do you decide what keywords you're going to dedicate and how much money you're going to dedicate to cost per click advertisements on Google when you got 50,000 part numbers? It's just, what sort of ROI do you get back from that? Are you figuring out any sort of usable information that can help drive the visibility to your website that you want to get? And that's kind of the whole point of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, I've worked with a client that it's taken them over 2 years to become very successful and establish their rankings much higher.
Yeah.
And do this. But I mean, 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, really understanding that universe. And as far as, trying to determine your ROI on, first of all, the 2 years of effort and all the pay-per-click, they play ostrich. They're going to bury their head in the sand. They don't want to know what the ROI is. Nobody, yeah, exactly. We talk about cars and boats and things like that. Hey, man, you better not try to cost justify those because it's just not going to work out. So, and I think e-commerce is often that way. We, as distributors, throw a lot of money into it because we got a feeling, we've been told or whatnot. But as far as really wanting to know the return on investment, I don't think we really want to know. I just don't think we really want to know what that is.
The thing is, like you just said, 2 years to get more established SEO and start to kind of see page rankings, things like that. It is a long play and you got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to put that effort in, but we're starting to see other forms of marketing tech that can definitely speed up that process. And, we wanted to be kind of on the forefront of that. And we saw an opportunity. So that's what we're going after.
So, within supply, tell me kind of where the first market was, because it seems to be you kind of work a market and you work the distributors in that market to try to drive it to local industrial users or MRE users there. What market, where'd you start? And what's been your strategy? Are you following a strategy to try to build this thing out, or where are you going?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And thank you for asking these questions because I'm super excited to talk about it, but if you can't tell. And plus, I've had a lot of caffeine today, so that absolutely helps. But I'm based up in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and starting out here through local distribution, I've been in the business a number of years now. That's kind of where we've started out at and showed traction and success with that. So we wanted to, as far as gaining market fit, not only did we have had success around here, but we just came back from the ISA, Industrial Supply Association conference.
Sure.
And we're getting and gaining traction from that. And there's a lot of opportunities out there for us. But that's kind of where we started. But our plan is to, it's a mobile app that can be available anywhere. We don't have any real restrictions other than, we're trying to build it across the U.S. And that's our strategy right now as far as who we're trying to hit. So as far as markets, it's no secret. Our goal is to have 10 distributors signed up and participating in each of the 32 NFL cities. And we think that's a good goal for us to hit that. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're really trying to, we have what's called the value wheel, which is showing distributors, end users, and OEMs the value of working with us. And we think we have some really unique and outside of the box marketing ideas that can definitely show value in kind of the new age of marketing to people that they're a little bit outside the box, but it's all stuff that's coming around. So social media, creating video content, working with influencers, doing all different types of things to really show distribution, end users, and OEMs the value of working with us.
I was just kind of thinking a little bit about some of the cities that are kind of basically screwed in your marketing plan. Places like San Antonio and St. Louis and Oakland just got, they're in trouble too. So all those guys, those guys are screwed in your marketing plan here.
Jason, we're not restricting it to those cities. We're not restricting.
Got San Diego lost your market.
No, we're not restricting it to that.
Okay.
That's our easiest way to explain to everybody. Okay, we're trying to hit the NFL cities to start. Sure. No, we're not restricting any city that wants to participate. Any distributors that want to participate, we'll welcome you with open arms.
Okay, fair enough. I just had to throw that down. When you told me that earlier, I was like, oh man, I got to get you on that one. So going back to, let's go back to when you started to work in the Twin City area. Where were you going first? Were you going to the end user first? Were you going to the distributor first? If you wouldn't mind, just kind of, how do you attack a market?
So when end users came to us, we had all this data. I mentioned this before. We had all this data, and they said, hey, we want a tool that can help us with this.
Okay.
Price and availability. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So our first thought was, hey, this is going to be an app that is going to be very valuable for end users. And then we thought, quite honestly, hey, well, how the heck are we going to make any money off this?
Good point. Good point.
And truth be told, so we didn't see, hey, do we charge $5 for end users to sign up for it? Okay, that might not be the best approach. Then just through relationships and asking people and trying to figure out this triple threat kind of thing and this value wheel of how we can work with end users, distributors, and OEMs, we started asking distributors, and I have to give credit to Ian Heller and the guys at DDS. They came out with a report kind of as we were developing this idea that showed the glaring need that was presenting itself, where small local distributors have a real challenge with online presence, getting people to their e-commerce sites and getting their content out to people. And we thought, okay, well, if we can show the value of our data and show the value of driving people to their websites, maybe that's a marketing tool that distribution could take advantage of. And that's where that kind of mind shift kind of changed from, hey, this is really a valuable tool, which it still is very valuable to the end user, where they can do a single search and find the products that they're looking for. But search, find, and buy is what we say. Search, find, and buy. But then from a distributor standpoint, we're putting eyeballs on their website, man, and it's very impactful. With a small increase of eyeballs on your website each month, that only raises your potential sales revenue, e-commerce sales revenue exponentially, quite literally.
Right.
So that's the advantage.
Gotcha. And so I'm going to assume then in Twin Cities, as you had kind of really went after some of the localized distribution to try to get them on your platform first. And that's really how organically that worked. Is that kind of the format?
Yeah. And sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent there a little bit, but you had asked that. So what was the strategy? So once we determined that it was more of a marketing tool for distribution, that's exactly what we did. We started targeting local, smaller distributors. Okay. So more independent distribution, but we focused in on industrial supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And we're quickly learning that this application and this type of product can be used in many other verticals as well. But that's been our main focus as of today.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of these type of tech plays tend to start in the industrial world. I mean, and I think that's because of the sophistication of the buyer. The more sophisticated that buyer is and the more prone to search online first, call second, that is really the better place to play. So yeah, and then ultimately moving to other vertical markets does make sense. But boy, you got a lot of geese to shoot at, in the industrial supply space, and because industrial is so vast. I mean, you've got the safety folks, then you can have all these different niche pieces inside of industrial, that as you were listening to that podcast with my friend Gabe.
I was just going to reference that.
Yeah, with Gabe, he found all the weird niches,
Yep.
and that's just, how he plays. But no, you've got a pretty vast universe to play in there. And so I think this is a good area to start into. How many markets now have you penetrated or kind of done your, at least started working with distributors in?
Primarily, it's been here in the Twin Cities and Minneapolis, Iowa, Wisconsin, North, South Dakota. The upper Midwest has been where we've piloted the program, if you will. We've got representation out in California and on the West Coast, and we're starting to build out there as well. But as we kind of mentioned, I mean, we're open for business in any market in the U.S.
Yeah. No, I think, obviously where you're at, in the upper Midwest is actually a great hub to start in, and prove out your product and do that. And, the Northeast is actually a very good place to play in industrial. I mean, that's a very, very good place as well. So that's kind of interesting. And you've gone to market through the shows. You went to the ISA show recently. How else have you attempted to go and reach besides, appearing on wonderful podcasts like this one?
Of course.
How are you getting your word? How are you getting your name out there? To the.
And this kind of goes back to a little bit of our approach that we can provide back to the distributors. As our go-to-market has been really focused on social media. It's been through content development. It's been through kind of the different forms of those ways that we're bringing the product and marketing our product. Specifically, man, I'll tell you what, through LinkedIn has been a huge portion of how we've gained traction, how we've really identified experts, how we've partnered with people, how we found influencers, how we have done many, many things. You can't stress, once you're involved in industrial supplies, MRO, it is kind of a small world. And there's different buying groups that are heavily associated with MRO and industrial supplies. There's different associations and organizations that they're always looking for new tools, new trends. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we've done a lot with social media, becoming involved really and ingrained in that community. So industrial distribution, industrial supply, MRO, the different buying groups. I mean, there's tons to name, but ISM, Institute of Supply Chain Management, ASCM, Association of Supply Chain Management, those two giant groups that we're pretty ingrained with. And those are a couple of the places we targeted. We've really tried to be strategic in who we're working with, who we're targeting, so we can get to the right people that distributors rely on to buy the products.
You and I had talked about this a little bit before you came on the show about, I like the availability side. The pricing side scared me a little bit, kind of bothers me. Again, being a distributor guy, I don't really, love, getting called out on price. But remind me again why you think that it's okay to have price and availability on there. That, again, the argument for availability, no problem. Tell me about price.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Okay.
Turn it around.
Because, yes, I am always curious to hear the argument against showing a list price.
I think this is where you and I spoke about this earlier, if I recall correctly. Against now list price, I'm cool with, because frankly, most of the time list is nothing sold at list. And
yes,
I think, I'm less, less worried because list price typically comes from the manufacturers anyway. If you're going like product to like product, SKU number to SKU number, the list is going to be the list no matter what. I mean, right across the board. Now, showing list price is fine. And I almost want to say that list price is a benign field almost. I guess it could help that end user in knowing approximately what they could be paying for something as perhaps they're doing planning and when they're considering that manufacturing procurement side, they could plan a little bit better. And so they'll have a rough idea of what something should cost. They probably are not ever going to pay that. So as long as we're not, I guess, and again, my understanding is that you're extracting from the e-commerce sites of these distributors anyway. They put their price out there anyway. It's like they're the ones who are doing it.
Thank you for that, by the way. I'm always interested in learning what the objections are. And from what I kind of hear from you is kind of what, you're holding your pricing close to the chest, but that's the contract or pricing that you give to somebody once they establish their relationship.
Right.
But to see, and I use many examples in this, and I would argue that over the course of COVID, things flipped and changed, and the end user expectation is, hey, I can go on Amazon. I see the price.
Yeah.
I make the purchase. It's so easy to actually use that interface that I go in there. It's so nice, easy. I get the product tomorrow, done. Okay. There's the expectation that the B2B buyer has now of B2C type of interactions.
Right.
And to get going down that path, if you're putting up any sort of barriers or buying obstacles or price walls, price walls is maybe a little bit different story, but if you're putting any up of those buying barriers, that is only going to turn off the end user and they're going to find it somewhere else. And unfortunately, I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. Now, if you're comfortable showing a list price, and you mentioned nobody sells or buys at list price anyhow.
Well, if you're lucky, you get to sell at that. But it's a lucky day.
Everybody kind of knows that that's kind of the deal.
Yeah.
And you go into a car dealership, they have the sticker price that's right on the window, and then you negotiate down. And nobody pays list price for a car, but yet that's a $50,000 purchase you're about to make, and you got to go in and negotiate that. And I don't see the difference really between that and buying a $3 Norton abrasive pad.
Sure.
And you put the price on there. Okay, let's negotiate. You want to negotiate, let's get a better price. But the visibility, if a customer can't even see, they go on your website, they make you log in, you got to do a credit application, you got to do all this kind of stuff that are buying barriers. It only makes that customer experience a little less than what their expectation is nowadays.
Correct. No, I would agree. Their expectation is they don't have to go through those hoops. They can just go, look, here's what the price is. That's the way it is.
And look, I get it. There's a difference in a B2B scenario where there are different ways to do things, but, starting them on that procurement, down that path is, getting them to the website. And then there's the other portions of the B2B sale that can take over from there.
Got to get them to click. I mean, that's it. You just got to get them to click. Yep. I mean, that's, and it's the same thing, when you're knocking on a door. It's really the same thing. You've got to get them to open a door.
Yeah.
That's really where it comes down to. And I just, I have this, long-standing visceral hatred for having to compete against price right out of the chute. And unfortunately, though, that's kind of the world that we live in, at this point, in many cases.
And, to that point, I am very sympathetic to that point. The but portion is that, I'm sitting here, I got 3 screens, I got 50 tabs open. Okay. And I'm sure buyers and procurement people do the exact same thing. They're checking prices and they're looking for that anyhow to start the process. And if you're not one of those tabs that's opened, but as far as from the pricing standpoint, to not have it available is just one more barrier that's put up between you and your end users or potential end users.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think, kind of thinking about your kayak model or Trivago or all the different,
Yeah.
aggregators from the travel and hospitality side. I mean, I think about it or even when I go and look at things on Google Shopping, to compare, different places, I don't always choose the lowest price. I don't go to knuckleheadsupply.com. I kind of look and I'm like, okay, there's a couple, there's 5 here. The lowest one is probably going to be a problem. I'm going to have a hassle. So I'm probably going to pick in the middle anyway. So,
And that's such a great point. If you went on Kayak and you saw 3 airlines that had their pricing listed and 2 that didn't, are you going to click on the 2 that didn't? That's one thing.
yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But also, in that kind of analogy, is that sure, you can choose a lower cost provider, but you kind of know what you're getting. Okay. There's not as much seat room. You have to pay for a bag. It's not going to, there's no quick check in. There's all these different things that go into that. And what we really want to, and not to necessarily bring it back to us, but what we really want to do is to get people to the sites so they can understand the services and the solutions that these smaller distributors can provide. And that's where they take over and show their true value. Everybody's going to shop for price and availability at the beginning, but then that's where if they don't get people to click on their website, they're never going to have that opportunity to sell their true values.
You know what I think is really funny, Mike, is we talk about availability, kind of wishing that was the driving force. But when I look at a lot of e-commerce sites for distributors, wholesale distributors,
Yeah.
availability is not there. It's price. It just dawned on me how foolish that is and how it's perpetuating that price shopping mentality.
Yeah. And when pandemic was in full war and people were looking for products and they couldn't find them, that was the biggest, hey, we need it. We need it now. We can't find it around town. We don't necessarily know where to look. And that was kind of the biggest driver. The price, that's never the concern. When you need something, you need something. And just being able to find it that's a huge portion of it.
Interesting. I'm hoping that the listeners kind of take note here that availability on your e-commerce platform is far more important than that price.
Yeah. And not easy to manage. I know that. Not easy to manage, especially if you have multiple locations. It's very difficult if you have, distribution centers, 4 or 5, whatever, regionally, and being able to manage that inventory is difficult, but it's also becoming easier with technology and inventory controls and ERP, MRP systems, all that.
Yeah, definitely. The integration between your e-commerce platform and your ERP and the data passing back between those two is so much better than it was.
For sure.
Even 2 years ago. I mean, it's moving in leaps and bounds. So again, I think there's really no excuse not to have that availability there. But again, I'm going to leave that up to the listener to try to determine that.
For sure.
So, Mike, I'm just looking at the time here going, we went a little longer and that's okay. I enjoyed it so far. Tell the folks how to get a hold of you. If they want to explore your options and your website and whatnot, and how they can get involved with you all.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, Jason. So iNSUPPli with an iNSUPPLi.com is where they can check out. It's a very basic landing page, but it describes exactly what we do. You can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Mike Franz on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to reach me. And then, we'd be really happy to talk with anybody about our product or any other tech or things that are happening in the industry that might be pretty cool for distributors to take advantage of. So
we would love to get them over there. Even people in non-NFL teams can play too. So,
oh my gosh! I hope that's not the main takeaway.
I know, I'm going to keep
NFL
her.
cities.
Yeah.
That's not the
it's
case.
just fun. Anyway, hey, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in, talking a little bit about this, and really, I think that for me, the main takeaway is driving exposure to local distribution, and I think that's really the message. I want people to walk away with is that's what you all are trying to do is get it out of the hands of the big SEO kingpins out there and bring it down to the local distribution and give them a shot too.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it. That's our main goal is to is to help out, level the playing field a little bit for the smaller distributors to drive community involvement and to help support the locals. So that's a big portion of it. Can't thank you enough. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. You take care, man.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.